Great example. And I love the idea there in terms of the win-win. I think we find that very often when people craft their jobs, that actually they can have unintended consequences. And this exercise, I call it the love and loathe exercise. And it's all around tapping into and exploring kind of the elements of your job that you love and those that you don't enjoy and those that kind of drain your energy. And then using that as a starting point of thinking about maybe where you can make some small changes to make your work better for you. I would encourage people to think about writing down 10 to 15 different kind of elements, core elements of their job that they do, and then you plot them on this graph in terms of whether they give you energy or whether they take energy away. And the further away from the kind of the middle point is, the more they give you energy or the less they give you energy. And the time component is the amount of time you spend doing them. So you've already plotted a couple of things there. So Anna, maybe if you talk about some of the things you've plotted and just saying why you've put them where you have on the graph.
In my role when I was a customer service representative, the things that were draining my energy was definitely processing the orders, so the very thing I was hired to do. And then doing returns. That was a process that we would do not every day, but a couple of times per week. And again, there was a little bit of paperwork, admin to do. And on the other hand, things that were giving me energy were talking to customers. I love doing data analysis and problem solving.
I love that. So, and all we're doing here is creating a space for us to step back from our jobs and think about what are the bits that we enjoy and don't enjoy. So if you think about that chart, and you can imagine as well for a team, if you get maybe 10, 15 people to do this with post-it notes, it gets kind of quite interesting quite quickly in terms of what people are kind of putting up there. So what I would do in terms from a job crafting perspective, I would encourage you to think about, are there ways that from that negative time, what can you do to kind of to reframe it in a way? So it may be thinking about how you think about that task. So for some tasks that you can't change, is there a way of you maybe thinking about what's the value and purpose of that task? Or is there ways of actually maybe approaching that task in a playful way? So if you're someone who's very competitive at it, is there something you can do and say, right, I'm going to do 10 kind of returns in an hour or 10 minutes, however, is that possible? Is that possible to do that, to kind of to gamify it and to have a bit of a fun challenge with it? Think about lots of opportunities for you to kind of improve on that particular task. Is there anything that comes to mind, particularly for you, having had that discussion?
Yeah, I love your idea with gamification, and also there was a visualizations. Quite a lot of orders were in the paper form, so I like seeing them shrinking from my tray.
Sometimes within organizations or teams, there's a task that no one likes doing. And if that's the case, I would challenge the team to think, number one, do you absolutely need to do this? If no one likes doing it, is it something you have to do?
Yeah.
Number two is, can you redesign this task to make it more kind of fun and engaging? Or number three, maybe it's just a case of the fact that you've got to kind of just refocus it and repitch it and understand the purpose of it. And that's how you can deal with the difficult tasks. So let's do the more fun thing though, Anna. Let's talk about something that maybe is an untapped activity that you've got. So why don't you pick one for us to explore?
I definitely love the data analytics.
So that's great. So again, I ask people to reflect on some questions. So is there an opportunity for you to do more of this in your job somehow? If you think about the dial, is there ways of you kind of dialing the notch of this up? Is it maybe an opportunity for you to discuss with your manager in terms of actually the value that you can provide to yourself and your colleagues by analyzing some of the data to being more metrics driven? And is it the way that you could actually volunteer to present some of this data in new formats? So would you have any ideas of if you wanted to do more of this in your role, what do you think you could do, Anna?
Yeah, so in that specific role, I started actually logging the queries that were coming from the customers in a spreadsheet. And also I've looked at the CRM system when our sales reps sometimes were putting data in, but some of them were not putting data in. And what I realized was that showing that to the sales reps I was working with, it helped us working better together. Let's work together to improve the customer service for all of us, for me as a customer service and for you as a sales, because that's going to be a win-win for both of us and of course for the customer.
Great example. And I love the idea there in terms of the win-win. I think we find that very often when people craft their jobs and have experiments, effectively tried new things, that actually they can have unintended consequences. So you may approach this of wanting just because you like data, but actually there's a real world benefit for your customers and for other colleagues. And this often happens that actually when people tap into their strengths, their interests, the kind of the benefits go beyond the individual, but to their colleagues and to their customers. So think about how it impacts on you, think about how it impacts on the team, and think about how it acts on your colleagues. And start small and treat it as an experiment, and you'll find that there's people are generally very, very surprised about the benefits of this that this brings.